Welcome to the deep dive. So today, we are looking at this great, frankly, baffling resistance to return to office mandates.
Yeah, baffling is definitely the right word for it.
Right. I mean, companies are basically rolling out the red carpet right now. They're doing everything in their power to get people back to their desks, and yet the resistance from employees just remains, oh, well, it's absolutely fierce.
It really is. And to figure out what is actually going on here, we're using a really fascinating recent survey from GPS Air.
Yeah, they're an indoor air quality systems provider, right?
Exactly. And they surveyed 750 non-remote U.S. workers, and the data they collected is basically our roadmap for today's deep dive.
So our mission today is to uncover this completely invisible, slightly bizarre, and highly influential factor that is actually keeping workers away from their desks.
And, what it reveals about modern employer-employee trust, which is a lot.
Right. And whether you are like a manager pulling your hair out, trying to get your team back into the building, or just an employee who inexplicably feels physically drained the second you walk through the lobby doors, this deep dive is going to give you a massive aha moment.
I think the insights from the survey completely reframe the whole conversation around why people just don't want to commute anymore.
Totally.
Because usually when a company is trying to solve a major problem like this, like a massive drop in office attendance, right, or a spike in dissatisfaction, they look for, tangible, visible culprits.
Yeah, it's the classic leaky roof scenario.
Yes. Exactly.
Like if you have water dripping into your living room, you check the pipes, you inspect the shingles, you look for water stains on the drywall, you look for something you can point a finger at, put on a spreadsheet, highlight in red, and just say, let's fix that.
Right, because it's a very comforting way to approach problem solving.
Yeah.
It gives leadership a very clear, actionable target.
But that approach completely falls apart when the thing actively undermining your entire operation isn't on a spreadsheet.
And doesn't leave a water stain.
Exactly. When the problem tearing your workplace apart is entirely invisible, you have a much more complicated mystery on your hands.
Because you can't fix what you can't see.
Yeah.
And you certainly can't fix what you aren't even looking for.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to truly understand this resistance, we actually have to look at what people are complaining about on social media right now.
Oh, yeah, the TikToks and everything.
Yeah. Before we get into the heavy data, there is this massive viral wave of videos from influencers and, well, just everyday office workers making a very specific and honestly kind of strange complaint.
Very strange.
They're claiming that the office air is literally making them ugly.
Yeah, the sheer volume of these videos is just staggering.
It's everywhere.
People are documenting their return to the office, and their core grievance isn't the hour-long commute or, a micromanaging boss. It's the physical deterioration they experience throughout the day.
Which sounds ridiculous at first.
I mean, they point out that they arrive looking fresh, and by 3 p.m., their clean, fluffy hair is entirely flat and greasy.
Yes, the flat hair.
And they complain about developing this, wane pallor, where their skin looks dull, grayish, and just completely depleted as the afternoon drags on.
Right. And the underlying accusation there is that they are inhaling this dodgy, poorly circulated air, and it is actively ruining their physical appearance.
Which, like you said, sounds like the ultimate vanity complaint at first glance.
It does. It just comes across as a modern version of whining about the lighting.
Yeah.
But, and here's where it gets real, think about the physical sensation of stepping off a 14-hour international flight.
Oh, that is the worst feeling.
Right. You've been trapped in that metal tube, breathing heavily recycled, dry, pressurized airplane air for over half a day. When you finally reach the terminal, your skin is dry, your eyes are itchy.
Your brain is totally foggy.
Exactly. You feel incredibly sluggish. You look in the mirror, and you look terrible because you feel physically depleted.
That's a really good analogy.
So what if just sitting in a standard, poorly ventilated office cubicle is essentially doing the exact same thing to your body, just on a slightly slower timeline?
Well, what's fascinating here is the physiological reality behind those seemingly cosmetic complaints. Because that is where this gets critical for business leaders.
It's not just about vanity.
No, not at all. It's about how the body reacts to its environment, which translates directly into measurable performance metrics.
So let's talk about those GPS Air survey numbers.
Yeah, so the survey takes this viral social media trend and gives us the hard, undeniable numbers on how indoor air quality impacts the daily grind. Out of those 750 non-remote workers, 53% say that temperature and airflow are the very first things they notice upon arriving at work.
Wait, 53%? That's more than half the workforce.
More than half.
So they walk into the building and their primary sensory focus isn't the lighting or the reception desk or, the fancy new coffee machine?
Nope. It is the immediate sensation of the air hitting their skin and entering their lungs. And that initial sensory input doesn't just register and fade away. That same group noted it shapes their mood for the entire rest of the day.
So they take one breath, feel a cold draft or a stuffy wave of stagnant heat, and their psychological state is just instantly locked in.
Exactly. Which naturally bleeds into their actual output.
I mean, if you are starting your day annoyed and physically uncomfortable, your work is going to suffer.
And the data strongly supports that connection. A striking 57% of participants stated that air quality directly influences their productivity, either negatively or positively.
57%.
Yeah. Poor air quality is actually a bigger drag on getting work done than classic workplace complaints like excessive noise or a messy, untidy office environment.
See, that statistic is a massive wake-up call. But it actually makes perfect sense when you unpack the coping mechanisms we have at our disposal.
How do you mean?
Well, think about it. If the office environment is too loud, you can pop in a pair of noise-canceling headphones. If your coworker's desk is a disaster zone of old coffee cups and loose papers, you can turn your chair, adjust your monitor, and just look the other way. We have developed all sorts of behavioral coping mechanisms for noise and tidiness.
But you don't have a coping mechanism for oxygen.
Exactly. You can't just opt out of breathing for 8 hours.
No, you can't. You are physically, continuously taking the environment into your body.
Right.
When that environment is stale, when the oxygen quality is poor or the circulation is practically non-existent, your brain simply cannot function at its optimal level.
That's where that cognitive fatigue sets in.
That sluggish airplane cabin feeling you mentioned earlier. The brain requires high-quality oxygen to maintain focus. Without it, you start making subtle mistakes, you lose your train of thought, your processing speed slows down.
And yes, your skin and hair react to the environmental stress as well.
Exactly. The physical discomfort and the functional decline are deeply intertwined.
So if bad air is ruining both our focus and our physical well-being, it completely explains the deep-seated unhappiness surrounding these building mandates.
It really does.
But here is the friction that I find so fascinating. Companies are very aware that people are unhappy about coming back.
Oh, they definitely know.
So they're rolling out the standard corporate apologies. They mandate 3 days a week in the office, people grumble, and management responds by stocking the break room with premium drinks.
Yep. They fill the fruit bowl.
They bring in artisanal snacks. They start offering daily catered lunches. They're spending thousands of dollars to make the office feel like a premium cafe.
Which highlights this massive disconnect between what executives assume will lure workers back and what workers are fundamentally demanding.
Right.
The executives are operating on an outdated playbook, trying to outperk a problem that is fundamentally biological and psychological.
I have to play devil's advocate for a second here, though.
Okay, go for it.
Because I'm looking at this standard corporate playbook, and part of me wonders if we are all just getting incredibly spoiled.
Oh, interesting.
Think about the workforce 20 or 30 years ago. Back in the 90s, people just drank the burnt, acidic break room coffee.
Very true.
They sat under buzzing, headache-inducing fluorescent lights, dealt with whatever stuffy air was coming out of the vents, and they just got the job done. It was almost a badge of honor to tough it out in a dreary cubicle.
It was definitely a different era.
Right. And now we have employees turning up their noses at free catered lunches because the airflow isn't to their liking. Is it possible expectations have just spiraled out of control? Are employees seriously demanding oxygen as a corporate perk now?
That is a very common pushback, and it's actually a crucial question for leaders to ask. Are expectations simply unrealistic?
Yeah, are they?
Well, to understand why the baseline has shifted so drastically, you have to look at the massive psychological reset that happened during the pandemic. It's not that workers are suddenly demanding artisanal oxygen as a luxury item. It's that they experienced a baseline necessity they didn't even know they were missing.
Ah, I see.
Odwin Cash, the CEO of GPS Air, pointed out some wild numbers from the survey regarding this exact trade-off. Nearly 2/3 of employees, 66%, said they would gladly trade all of those food and drink amenities, every single catered lunch and premium snack, for the simple guarantee of fresh, comfortable workplace air.
Wow. So take away the free bagels, Start buying the expensive cold brew and just let me breathe clean air.
Exactly. And furthermore, 67% of them said they'd actually be more willing to work in person if companies simply committed to improving and communicating about their air quality.
67%.
Yeah. The pandemic gave people a taste of total environmental autonomy.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
When you work from home, you are the master of your domain.
Right. You control the thermostat.
Yes.
If it gets stuffy, you open a window to let in a breeze. You might buy a small air purifier for your desk. You dictate the temperature, the airflow, the humidity.
And you aren't constantly negotiating with your coworkers over whether the AC should be blasting or turned off entirely.
The thermostat war.
The thermostat wars. Those used to tear entire departments apart. Working from home completely eliminated that friction. It feels like working from home just broke our tolerance for bad environment.
Totally.
We realized we don't have to suffer through the afternoon slump if we just crack a window.
So workers are now evaluating the office through that new lens of autonomy. They are looking at the mandate and saying, you want me to commute an hour each way, pay for gas, and sit in a building where the air quality and circulation are delegated to some aging, underperforming, neglected HVAC system.
Basically saying, I have to give up my perfectly calibrated home environment to breathe stale, dodgy air.
Yes. They simply refuse to make that trade, and no amount of free pizza is going to bridge that gap.
It's a profound loss of agency, really. And when you frame it like that, it completely dismantles the idea that workers are just being divas.
They're really not.
They are reacting to having their physical control stripped away. When an employer mandates a return to a specific space, but then completely fails to ensure that space is physically comfortable, healthy, and conducive to actual work, it creates a massive rift in the relationship.
And that failure breeds immediate resentment.
Right.
Because if an employer ignores the very air their team is breathing, if they just let the office sit there feeling stuffy and stagnant while demanding high performance, the employee automatically makes a series of devastating assumptions about that employer.
They assume total negligence.
Exactly.
Which pushes this entire conversation way past the realm of physical comfort and deep into the psychological impact of environmental management.
It really does.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Indoor air quality has essentially become a proxy for leadership perception. Invisible environmental factors are now the ultimate litmus test for whether an employee feels respected by the people signing their paychecks.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the hidden cost of poor air quality isn't just lost productivity. It is the active erosion of your employees' belief in your competence as a leader.
This mechanism of trust reminds me perfectly of going to a new restaurant.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine you walk into a highly recommended spot. The dining room looks beautiful. The lighting is moody and perfect. The tables are pristine. The waitstaff is wearing crisp uniforms. You are having a great time.
Sounds great so far.
Right. But then, halfway through the meal, you get up and walk into the bathroom, and it is completely filthy.
Oh, no.
The trash is overflowing. The mirrors are smudged. It smells terrible. Your mind immediately goes to one very specific place.
You lose all confidence in the entire operation.
You immediately start wondering, well, if they let the bathroom get this bad out here where the customers can actually see it, what on earth does the kitchen look like behind closed doors? It ruins the entire experience. The beautiful dining room suddenly feels like a cheap facade. If a company's air is stale and neglected, employees are using that environmental failure as a proxy for how management runs the entire business.
They absolutely are.
They sit at their desk, struggling to focus in a stuffy room, and they think, if you can't even manage the basic airflow in this building, how can I possibly trust you to manage my career trajectory, or the company's financial future, or our most important clients?
And the BPS air data backs up that restaurant analogy with striking precision. The statistics on trust and leadership are arguably the most heavy-hitting findings in the entire survey.
What are the numbers there?
So 83% of respondents state that better workplace conditions, specifically noticeable improvements to fundamental things like air quality, strengthen their confidence that leadership is prioritizing a well-managed environment.
83% is a massive, overwhelming majority of the workforce actively judging executive competence based on the physical environment provided to them.
And the intensity of that judgment is severe. For 50% of those respondents, this environmental factor is rated as very or extremely influential on how they view their leaders.
Half of them.
Half. It's not a minor detail or a passing thought. It is a primary daily driver of their confidence in the management team. It is essentially a silent, continuous performance review of the executives happening with every single breath the employee takes.
And if the air is bad, leadership is failing the review every 3 seconds.
That's a great way to put it. Another 83% say that visible efforts to improve comfort and safety make them feel more respected as employees.
Because respect is a reciprocal dynamic.
Exactly. Leaders are currently demanding respect for their return to office mandates. But if you want employees to respect a mandate, they have to feel respected by the environment you are forcing them to inhabit.
Makes sense.
Finally, 66% of survey participants said that improved ventilation, airflow, or temperature control would reassure them that the office is actively managed.
You know, the phrase actively managed really stands out there because the source explicitly mentions that employees don't want to feel like the building is just a concrete box left to self-regulate after an annual bare minimum maintenance check.
No, they don't.
They want to know someone is paying attention.
And Odwin Cash dives deeply into the solutions here, and his insights are critical for any leader trying to navigate this. Companies absolutely cannot solve this problem with superficial optical fixes.
What do you mean by optical fixes?
Like, you can't just deploy a huge, highly visible cleaning crew to wipe down the desks every night and make the office sparkle. You can't just buy a batch of trendy new ergonomic chairs and call it a day.
Because you can have the most spotless, sanitized desks in the corporate world, but if the air hanging above those desks feels heavy, dusty, and stagnant, the illusion of a premium workplace falls apart the moment an employee takes a breath.
Employees are, quite literally, sniffing the air for authenticity. As Cash points out, the modern workforce is looking beyond appearances to see if a space is genuinely cared for at a foundational level.
So what does that actually look like for a company?
That means companies need to make actual, hard financial investments in their HVAC systems. These systems need to be modern, they need to be capable of ensuring high air quality, and crucially, their performance needs to be monitored and communicated.
That communication piece seems like the ultimate missing link.
It really is.
Because if a company spends hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading an HVAC system, that is an inherently invisible investment. There is no shiny new object for the employees to look at.
Right, you can't post a picture of it on the company newsletter and expect applause.
Exactly. So how do you get the leadership credit for fixing the problem? You have to aggressively tell them. You have to say, we heard your complaints about the environment, we invested capital in fixing it, and here's the actual data showing the air you are breathing today is clean.
You have to make the invisible visible. That is the only way to rebuild the trust that was lost. You have to prove, with data and transparency, that you aren't just managing the optics of a fancy office, but that you are deeply invested in managing the foundational health and comfort of the people working inside it.
So what does this all mean? When you step back and look at the entire journey of this deep dive, the evolution of this topic is pretty wild.
It really is.
We started by looking at what initially seems like a trivial, hypervanity, viral joke on social media about flat hair and looking pale by 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, the ugly trend.
Right. But by unpacking the data, we've realized that indoor air quality is actually the new invisible battleground for corporate trust and employee agency.
It represents a fundamental, permanent shift in workplace dynamics and the psychological contract between employer and employee.
So for you listening, if you have been dreading going into the office and you couldn't quite put your finger on why, like if you just feel sluggish, foggy, and exhausted the moment you sit down at your desk, it might not be a lack of motivation or burnout.
No.
It might literally be the air you are breathing. Your body is having a very real physiological reaction to a poorly managed environment.
That's entirely possible.
And if you are a leader listening to this, trying to figure out why your team is fighting you on returning, the takeaway from this data is clear. Catered lunches and ping pong tables cannot fix a broken HVAC system.
You simply cannot outperk bad oxygen.
No, you can't. If you want compliance, and more importantly, if you want your team's genuine trust and respect, you have to invest in the basic invisible environment they're forced to inhabit.
And you know, this raises an important question for the future of work. If indoor air quality is now a non-negotiable metric for employee respect, how long until we see live air quality data posted on job listings right next to salary and healthcare benefits? Will the next big Glassdoor metric be a 5-star rating for a company's HVAC system? Think about that the next time you take a deep breath at your desk.